GM. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Looks like people are trickling in. I am going to share my screen, so stand by. All right. So welcome to what is the in-depth look of our beta version release of Civic Auth. I'm Titus Capilnean. I'm the VP of Go-to-Market at Civic. And with me, we have Daniel Kelleher, who is our CTO. Welcome, Dan. Thank you for joining us. And today we're going to go through like a few slides, walk you through Civic Auth, Civic Pass, and then we're going to have a live coding session courtesy of Dan to show you how easy it is to integrate Auth, and we'll also leave some time for Q&A. But before we begin, I want to introduce Civic. We're all about making user management seamless with both Web 2 and Web 3 builders. And as I said, today we're rolling out the next evolution of Auth. And yeah, I want to take this time to introduce you to Civic and the world of authentication, authorization, verification. So without further ado, I wanted to touch upon the challenges within the IAM space and why we end up building up in the space. We started as an identity company, but we realized hey, the authentication piece is also a source of friction in both the Web 2 and Web 3 world. And still, products out there cause users to abandon sign-up workflows because they're too complex, the extra steps, extra fields, not great design in the authentication process, increase that friction. In our opinion, authentication should not feel like a chore for the user. The sign-up should be seamless and straightforward. And you'll see that in the way we've built Auth. The other thing that is annoying and difficult for builders is that building itself is complicated with Auth. Sometimes the bells and whistles and the battery is not included, and the things that extra that you need to do on top of initial authentication library or product end up derailing your timelines and slow down the launch. So that's another pain that we wanted to address with what we're doing here. And on the other end, DIY verification is also potentially a massive distraction. There's always more things than just a login box when you're authenticating users. There's session management, there's fraud prevention, there's compliance security, all the things that come with the infrastructure that stands behind a solid authentication system. And I think when we believe no builders should trade security for growth, I think security is paramount, and we should always build with that in mind and not trade it away and risk bad actors. And we believe that there's not a one-size-fits-all solution for Auth. I think we think there's space in the ecosystem to improve and to align with the more agile builders, both in the Web 2 and the Web 3 space. And then we also believe there's different features that builders in Web 2 and Web 3 require. So we think flexibility is super important. So I think the bottom line is we believe the engineering teams should spend time on what makes their product unique and not on building and integrating Auth. And that's why we ended up building an end-to-end system that facilitates both access management and identity, and through a simple SDK. And that shouldn't require weeks of integration. I think the challenge today is asking yourself, what if authentication was a bottleneck? What does that look like? What if wallet-based authentication, single sign-ons, and customizable UI took minutes and not weeks? I think that's where we're going with this launch and this product line. So at Civic, this is exactly what we're building. We want you to connect with your users on your terms, verify them on your terms, and prove that it's them every single time with the least amount of friction possible and without security compromises. We've been in the space for over 10 years now. We are trusted by ecosystem leaders. We started off as a decentralized identity company, and we grew into an identity verification provider, and now we're adding authentication to that layer. We work with great teams in the Web3 space like Gitcoin, Rails, Metaplex, Honeyland, and others, and we're very proud to have been through a few of the growth waves in that space. As I said, we believe authentication and access control should be fast, flexible, and privacy preserving. You shouldn't be spending months on development. That's why we built these two solutions, Auth and Pass. So with Auth, the goal is to make that login process frictionless and give the user the flexibility to sign in however they want. This essentially is an integration with a few lines of code that gives you multiple login options, a familiar sign-in experience for the user, and last but not least, embedded Web3 wallets for EVM and Solana ecosystems to be built right into your auth flow. Why? Because we want to help you get better conversions, faster onboarding, more time to focus on your actual product, not auth headaches. Pass, which is our longest standing product, we take things a step further and let your app define who gets access based on what credentials they have. And those credentials could be age, location, proof of personhood, government issued IDs. And this is done in a privacy preserving way on chain without exposing unnecessary data. And obviously this is like also done in a low code integration environment. We have libraries built for that, and it's all, you can all control access based on the credentials that users get within the verification process. And together, these two products will give you everything you need to onboard users quickly, securely, and in a way that fits your app needs. So like in the next few slides, I'm going to go through how Civic Pass works, and then we're going to jump into Auth, and then after that, we're going to have the coding session with. So Civic Pass, as I said, it enables user verification and access control in a seamless way. We also support the right to be forgotten. It's not just like privacy preserving through the fact that there's no personal information going on chain, but also that information can be revoked or frozen. So the passes themselves have state, unlike other blockchain applications, which have essentially immutable data stored on chain. The integration itself is super seamless. We have libraries for EVM and Solana, along with a React component for the front-end integration. So just with a few lines of code, you can add that identity verification to your dApp or smart contract. It's built with audited technology. We offer dedicated API endpoints for those of you that require more advanced security features. And we've proven ourselves to have a scalable solution. And you'll see that in the next few slides on like the numbers behind the story. So I think with Civic Pass, you get the best of all worlds, like the privacy, security, and ease of use within a kind of like Web3 environment that has the specific requirements. And it empowers people to build trusted and compliant applications in a decentralized way. So a bit of kind of numbers behind the Civic Pass. We have 1 million passes issued to date. Those numbers are growing every day. We've verified over 170,000 unique individuals to prevent Sybil attacks and enforce one person one wallet scenarios. This is one of the more common attacks in the crypto space. So it's been a tried and tested solution. We've seen like spikes of activity. There's no kind of issues with us serving higher traffic requirements, not just like early stage builder level. I think I mentioned this, we're multi-chain, so both EVM and Solana, and also ICP, so Internet Computer, which is a integration that we recently launched. There's a few types of passes, captcha, liveness, uniqueness, and ID verification. They serve different needs for different purposes. I'll go through that in more detail in the next few slides. And these layers can be combined to like match the needs of your app. So like whatever you're trying to combat or you're trying to prevent or enforce, there's a tool for that in this system. So either you're trying to enforce compliance or you're trying to enforce one person, one account. You're trying to enforce, hey, no bots, either the light way or the more strong way through captcha or liveness. They're things that you can use from our toolbox. As I said, super simple to deploy. Our docs go into the detail of that, but usually you have to add a few snippets of code at smart contract level or at backend level, and at front-end level for sure to verify your users. So I'll go into more detail about the problems we're solving in this space. So one of the biggest challenges, I think now with the rise of AI agents and AI tools, is that more and more bots and sophisticated bot attacks are happening in both like Web 2 and Web 3 spaces. It's hard for applications to build up that resilience against those bad actors. And the approaches to verify often create unnecessary friction, and that results in abandonment rate and frustration for the users. So in our case, we're giving builders tools on chain to essentially enforce a captcha or liveness verification for anyone participating in a specific smart contract scenario. Like, for example, people are trying to do some activities on your app, but you don't want your server to be like completely overwhelmed through a denial of service attack. this is a potentially good use of that particular infrastructure. If you want to enforce something a bit more powerful and want to make sure that like only real human beings interact with your application and be 100% sure of that, liveness pass is something that you would like to get, because that's a biometric protection instead of just a captcha test, which may or may not work in every scenario. So this on-chain verification maintains that security while reducing the friction and also keeps your app running. I think I mentioned Sybil a couple of times already. This is when a bad actor creates multiple fake accounts to manipulate the system, like either to gain votes in a governance scenario, or to collect rewards, or to collect an airdrop, or some sort of incentive that your application may give out, or to manipulate the dynamic of the game or the mechanics of the game. So in this case, especially in the Web3 world, we have seen more of these attacks. And not just, if you look at the social media platforms in the past, both in commercial situations and then also in like kind of community situations, we've seen people spin up fake accounts and act as real humans. So essentially the uniqueness path that we created forces the person to go through a biometrics test before creating a new account. And if they've already created an account, then they're not allowed to create another one unless they're able to get that uniqueness pass. That way, we can more reliably say that bad actors cannot create fake identities in your application. And this is with respecting users' needs for confidentiality. These biometric tests are essentially representations of some measurements on the face using like a 3D face map. They're not actually like your face or a video of you. So that ensures the privacy of that process instead of like just capturing faces and storing them in a weird face database. And then last but not least, compliance. It's not something people like to talk about, but I think the demands in each geography are different, and more platforms have to comply to their local regulations and essentially know who they're doing business with. And I think the idea here is to do business with people that know and trust. And this creates that level of trust between the platform and the users in a privacy preserving way. Because on chain, the result of the verification is a pass that is private, that just says, hey, this person's been verified. And based on the criteria that you have on the verification side, it can essentially mean that this person has passed all of the requirements of your compliance department or your local regulator to essentially access your application and your regulated product. So in this case, the on-chain proof is non-transferable, but it can be also modified in the sense of can be revoked or frozen if the user turns out to actually be a bad actor. So you're not like stuck with that user once they're verified. And then last but not least, there's off-chain access to the information if needed for compliance purposes. And then more recently, we're previewing at this point a solution where we can store data on the kind of app builder's behalf in an end-to-end encrypted way with their private key, which we don't have access to, so that they can retrieve that data in a secure way if that is ever needed. So that's a little bit on the past side. And I want to go through a few use case examples to give it more, anchor it into the more specific realm. For gaming, GameFi, you can use Civic Pass to ensure player uniqueness, prevent multi-accounting, cheating, farming, Sybil attacks. For DeFi, compliance rules on chain, making sure you're not doing business with OFAC sanctioned individuals, people that have not been able to pass AML checks or other like compliance hurdles. So essentially, you can gate the service at the infrastructure level based on verified identity. For communities and DAOs, this is where the Sybil attacks happen to promote voting fraud. You can enforce verification rules to verify genuine members, protect governance and community resources. For RWA real-world assets, as these assets move on chain, they bring the rules with them. So based on the restrictions that you may have locally in your geography or where the asset is issued, you want to mirror those restrictions on chain in a transparent way. And then any kind of smart contract development environment can benefit from these identity requirements. It enables programmatic whitelisting without that kind of custom complex security implementations. So it comes off the shelf. And then I think another interesting use case that we're trying to promote more and more is like, how can we protect Web3 wallets from draining with, for example, uniqueness or biometrics checks to ensure that only the authorized individual can transfer, let's say, tokens over a certain amount of value and create that crucial security layer. So I think the takeaway from this is like Civic passes that level of verification that applications need to essentially control who interacts with their application, be it, hey, is this a human, or all the way down to full KYC AML compliance. And it's implemented like modularly, efficiently, and flexibly from like a payments perspective, like who ends up paying for it, the user or the application. Cool. Now, yeah, let's go into the main topic of the day. So authentication, Civic Auth. Today we're like introducing it to the world. We soft launched it a little earlier, tested it a lot. We want to make sure everything works really well. But today we're introducing a more improved version with several SSO options. We want to be able to say this is the fastest passwordless authentication system for Web3 applications. That's where we're essentially putting ourselves to the task of integrating it in less than 5 minutes, only a few lines of code, no complex backend requirements. SDKs are already, and you'll see that in just a few minutes once that we get to the coding section. Essentially, we've built it to adapt to user preferences, to offer multiple sign-in options. Eventually, we'll support email and passkeys and bring your own wallet connections. Right now, it supports 5 single sign-on options. And this is the path to that frictionless onboarding that I was talking about at the beginning. The system supports embedded wallets, both EVM and Solana. We'll show that later and how that looks like in the platform dashboard. And essentially, we want to make sure that this works for both crypto native users and completely new to Web3. And we want everyone to have that same seamless authentication experience and reduce that abandonment rate and increase the conversion rates. So with that simple SDK, you can essentially deploy an enterprise-grade authentication that scales with your app while maintaining those like highest security standards. So a few of the features that come with Auth: EVM and Solana wallet support, SSO options, and you see here we added Google, Facebook, X, Discord, and GitHub off the bat. There's a really nice, simple to use, beautiful, customizable UI, drag and drop editor, choose your SSO options, preview those changes in real time. That 5-minute setup, it's faster than brewing a coffee. Literally, I had to brew coffee this morning. It took me more than 5 minutes. And then framework flexibility. I think this is something that's super important with all the JavaScript frameworks out there. We're gonna make sure we can integrate with React, Next.js, Node.js, and other ones. Speaking of integration, so this is how deployment works in less than 5 minutes. You sign up, get your client ID, install that library. In this case, I'm using the Web3 auth example. And then you can wrap your app inside the Civic Auth provider and have access to the authentication service. I think without further ado, this is the point where I'll invite Dan, our CTO, to demonstrate this process live. Dan will show you quickly how to integrate Civic Auth into a real application and walk through the entire process and show you some product as well.
Thanks.
So over to you, Dan.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Excellent. And I will start sharing my screen. Okay, you should see a ominous dark screen. Is that what
Yep.
All right.
Terminal.
The reason we're doing that is because I'm going to start from the very start and I'm going to create a brand new app. And the easiest way to do that is npx create feed app or next app. I'm going to do Next.js integration and I'm going to call it auth demo. And I'm just going to use all the defaults. So it would be great if people can play along with me. If you have a terminal in front of you, if you're ready to do a little bit of coding, it's not going to be very much. It's almost all copy and paste. Then you can just do what I just did and run npx create next app, and then go into that service or go into that folder you just created, and then run npm. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to show you what I'm going to be following. If you go to docs.civic.com and click on the Civic Auth docs, And then we're going to be integrating with Next.js. It's actually not the fastest. The fastest is just a pure front-end React app. We're going to do a slightly more detailed demo for you today to show the flexibility. But if you have just a front-end React app, then this is the integration you want, the React integration. It's literally just that. We're going to do the Next.js one. So I've just created a out-of-the-box dummy Next.js app. If I run it, npm run dev, then I should see on localhost 3000, it should see a nice boilerplate app like this. And we're going to add Civic Auth to this, which means we're going to add a login button. And the login button will show you who you are, show you your name once you're logged in. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, according to the docs, is install Civic Auth itself. Actually, if that's on this page, install Civic Auth itself. So we're going to do that here. So just for this step, I'm going to stop the server, npm install Civic Auth. And then I'm going to open it. Everything else I'm going to do in an IDE, which I'll open in a minute to get off this scary dark screen. WebStorm is my IDE of choice. So while that's starting up, I'm just going to restart the server again over in my IDE to have everything in the same place. npm run dev. Oops. Okay, so we've added Civic Auth here. The next step is to get ourselves a client ID. So to do that, you just need to go and visit auth.civic.com, as Titus already said, and log in. So you don't need to sign up for anything. There's no credit card you need to enter or anything like that. Everything is free in the sandbox mode or in the development mode. So everything you see me do today, you can do yourself. Now, I actually have an app already, which is why you're seeing this page. If you did this for the first time, you would see this page. And this is the page I want you to go to. And then you just need to copy this client ID. And actually, it already gives you in here the same snippets that it gives you in the docs. So it makes it a little bit easier for you to copy and paste. Straight from here, we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 steps to get it included get Civic Auth included into our app. The first one is adding the Civic Auth plugin as part of the Next.js config, which is literally copying this and pasting it into next.config.ts. In real life, you would want to put this as an environment variable. You would probably wouldn't want to hard code this into your code, but I'll just leave it like this for now for convenience. And the next thing we're going to do is create a route. This route is what handles the login and the logout interchange between the client and the server. So you just need to create a new file with that name and then copy the contents, those 2 lines. Whoops, forgot to copy. Boom, that's it. Now you have all your routes set up. The next thing is the middleware. The middleware ensures that no one can access your authenticated routes, your secure routes, without being logged in. So it'll protect all your other routes, so to speak. Middleware.ts. Put that in there. Sometimes you'll want to configure this yourself. That's up to you. But for now, this is perfectly fine. Finally, we add a context. This is a React component that gives the rest of your UI access to the user information on the front end. So you can, for example, display the username. This is a little bit more dependent on your setup. So it's not a pure copy and paste, but essentially it's this layout here. Wherever you have this layout wrapping the rest of your app, you want to just put Civic Auth Provider in there and then add the import. And you want to make sure in this case to add the Next.js import. If you're using React, then there's a different import, and that is in that case where you pass the client ID. But because we're using Next.js, it's simpler, and we can pass the client ID in this config plugin that I showed you earlier. And that's it. Now we're wired up. The one thing I'm going to do, if we go back to the UI, we'll see no change. But what I wanted to do was show that UI component that lets you log in with the user button. So that is this step in the docs. If we scroll down past all this stuff we already did, now we're on to actually using it. And this is this user button that I'm going to add in here. So I'm going to remove some of that boilerplate UI. let's say we remove everything except that Next.js image at the top, and we replace it with that user button and import that. This one does get imported from React, it's a React component. And then we go back to our app and we see this sign in button. And if we click sign in, at the moment I have one option, log in with Google. Open up and log in. And there we go. Okay,
and even with explanations, it took less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm not my UI isn't showing that, but my profile picture isn't showing here, but you can see the username that indicates that I'm logged in. Yeah, I hope I wasn't talking too fast, Titus, during that. I was
No, it was great. I was able to follow
coding at the
every
same
step.
time. So let me show you another couple of things. Once you've got this far, you can start to configure your options, as Titus said. So if you click back into the dashboard and you go to login options, then you can start to add other social logins. So let's say we added all of these, and then you click save. You can see what the login button is going to look like on the right-hand side. But if you go back to your app, I'm just going to log out and then log back in again. You can see it updates in real time. Now I'm going to log in with my GitHub. Okay, so GitHub doesn't need to have that issue with my profile picture, so you can see me there. And so that's one of the things you can do. Let me just log out again and show another couple of the details. So you can obviously always add a logo. I'm gonna just trust that I have, yeah, I'm gonna put my face, and that one's too big. I didn't actually prepare to upload an image, so I won't go searching through my laptop for an image right now, but you can add my super app, and again, it'll update in real time. I guess I have to refresh my super app. In that case, I had to refresh because it had cached it. Makes sense. Other things you can do, you can change it to dark mode. Auto is by default right now, where it will pick up the settings of your user. You can add your own terms and conditions, etc. The other thing I wanted to quickly show is this list here, which shows you all the users that are logged in. This is an app that I already created, as you can see, which I have a bunch of them. And then the wallet addresses if you have users with crypto wallets, which is something that we might move on to talk about now. How are we doing for time, Titus? Do we have time to move on to the crypto wallet aspects?
Let's spend a few minutes on the crypto wallet aspect as well.
Okay. Actually, before I do that, just anybody who's interested primarily in Web 2, I'm going to just log in again very quickly, by which I mean anyone for whom crypto wallets are not particularly relevant. I want to just show another couple of quick UI things. We talked about this user button, and that's all well and good, but what if I want to know about the user on my front end? There's the hook. There's a hook called, first of all, if you're in the back end, you can, as we are here, this is actually a server component. I won't go into React.js, the details of React.js right now in this call, sorry, of Next.js, but you can generally always in the back end go user equals async await get user, and then I have to make this an async function. And then you can, if that user is logged in, then you will have that user there. So you can go user.name and so on, right? If you're in a front end component, then you have a hook. I'm just going to create a quick front end component here. So I'm going to create, let's say, userinfo.ts. Whoops. I'm going to create a file, userinfo.tsx. Okay, and this is going to be a client component. Again, don't worry if this doesn't mean anything to you if you don't use React server components and things like that. This works in bog standard React as well. Export const user info. And all this is going to do is go const user equals use user. Actually, I'm gonna wrap that in curly brackets. So that's the user object. And now I'm just going to do actually, I'm going to use that Copilot do its thing. Do that, something nice. I'm not going to do JSON to stringify though. I'm going to go hello My bad. User dot name. Okay, so if the user doesn't exist, we're just going to show loading. Otherwise, we're going to go hello user.name. And then I'm going to go back into my page and actually use that component. I'm going to actually show, no, I'll just include it as is. So that's user info. Then import it. See how we're looking. Okay, there you go. So basic stuff. Let's now move into Web3. So if you want crypto wallets for your users, but you don't want, if you want users to be able to use a blockchain app or a Web3 app, but you don't want them necessarily to have to know about wallets and have to install a crypto wallet already and have to provision it with funds, etc., then you can use Civic Auth, both for login and to give your users a wallet. We have a separate library for that, Civic Auth Web3. So instead of using Civic Auth, you would use Civic Auth Web3. The interface is identical. So I'm literally going to go through here and I'm going to replace everywhere where I have Civic Auth with Civic Auth Web3. I think it was 3 places, right? Sorry, 4 places total. There we go. And then in my little user info component, I want to add it as well. I can now remove the other one. We don't want both. And now the app, once I start, yeah, my IDE took a little while to find it. Once I restart the app, or npm run dev, then should, if I do a quick refresh, see everything behaving as it was before. I'll just log in again. Okay, I'm already logged in. That's good.
Well, your credential didn't expire.
Oh, yeah, probably it. Anyway, what I want to do is show now how to gain access to that wallet. There's a few different ways of doing it, and it's all detailed in this Web3 part of the docs. The main choice you'll need to make is whether you're supporting Ethereum wallets or Solana wallets. You can also do both, but the ways in which you integrate those two, they're similar in some ways though. So the first, and then if you, let's say we go with Ethereum, generally you will use a library like VM or WAGMI. We support WAGMI out of the box, and we also support VM out of the box. It's also possible to use things like ethers, but VM is preferable. For now, I'm going to leave WAGMI behind. If we have time to get to WAGMI, then I will, but I just want to show a VM integration first. So the important thing to bear in mind is this user object now that you have with use user. Let's go back into my user info. This user object now might have a wallet. So you can go, let's say, actually, I haven't prepared this as quite as much. Let me just see if I can do it off the cuff. If user has wallet, I actually want to switch this now to the context, user context. There we go. So if not user, if there is no user, then just do the loading screen. If the user has a wallet, then show this. And then what we're going to do is, actually, I have a better idea. I'm going to use this hook we've got called use wallet. And what you have to do is put in type of wallet that you want to support here, which is either, I'll import it and then you can see the autocomplete. So the type is either Solana or Ethereum. That's the easiest way to do it. So if you do that, then instead you can take a look at this and go if wallet.address. So what I'll do is if there's no user yet, or if there is no wallet address, then do this. Otherwise, we're just going to show the stuff down here. And what we're going to do is just say wallet. Your wallet is wallet.address. Okay, so far so good. Let's see if it worked. I'm gonna have to log in again. Okay, it's actually not finding it now. I think I maybe have to log in with a user that already has a wallet with this application. So I'll log in with my Google user. Don't think that makes a difference. Okay, I'm live coding, so I'm probably doing something slightly wrong. I'm not looking at the docs very much. I will have to go and double check why I'm not seeing the wallet straight out of the box here. But this is effectively the idea. You have this wallet object, and then it has an address, and it also has, and this is the important bit that I want to get to, it has a wallet client. So I guess we should call this something better, something more less confusing. Let's call this wallet context. So it has this wallet client. This is a VM wallet client. So then you can use this in your code like you would a normal VM signer. So for example, if you want to get the user's balance, then you can, let's create a hook to do that. Probably the best thing to do. Use balance. And then use balance would be something along these lines. I might not have time to completely finish this. Okay, it's helping me quite a lot. I'm not going to use React query, so this isn't exactly what I want here. So I'm going to just get rid of this. I'm going to import all of these. I actually don't need the user. And so I actually want to create a public client here. If you don't use VM, don't worry too much about this. Equals, so this will be use memo.
This is going into like advanced crypto web dev.
Yeah, maybe I should pull out. Maybe I should pull out. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pseudocode it. You would create the client, public client, and then you would ask it for the balance using public client, client.get balance. And then you would put that in a state, and then you'd return the balance here, right? You don't need me to show all that. Yeah,
And
I will.
I think the bottom line is here you'll have the same level of functionality as you would with a vanilla crypto wallet. But instead of having the user to store their private keys and explain all that cryptographic stuff to them and have them go through that onerous onboarding otherwise, they'll be able to use the crypto wallet directly within the application you're creating. So you can create those actions inside your application to like sign transactions, send balances, receive balances, and so on. I think that's
Yeah,
the idea.
that's exactly it. So we made a decision to leverage and use existing libraries that people will be familiar with. So in the Ethereum world, that's Ethers, sorry, that's VM and WAGMI. In the Solana world, that's the Solana wallet adapter and the Solana wallet interface. So you can just use your existing libraries from Solana and it'll just plug straight into there.
Yeah.
And that's what means that if you already have an app and you just want to now support users that don't come with a crypto wallet, then you can just add Civic and it will plug straight into those.
Cool. Thank you, Dan. We have a couple of questions that came in. So first question is from Daniel. Is it possible to integrate in a non-JavaScript framework?
It is. We don't have a client library for that yet, but we are fully OpenID Connect compliant. That you can basically use any library for any language that you like, and it should work seamlessly with that. There are details in the docs, but also reach out to us if you have difficulty with any specific library, any specific language, any specific environment. We're not in the position to be able to test them all, so we definitely appreciate if you reach out to us if you have any difficulty with it.
Yeah, we have the
I should
integration
mention as well, sorry, Titus, that's for the Civic Auth, the login and authentication aspect. The embedded wallets are currently in JavaScript environments only.
All right, good extra point to be aware of when integrating. So auth will work outside of JavaScript frameworks, embedded wallets no. And then there's another question here. Can we integrate with Civic Pass into a WordPress site? And then after the user has been verified, store the project information in our database?
I think yes. I don't have a direct answer for exactly how to do that. I'm not particularly familiar with WordPress myself, but I think yes. And actually, we're working on a future version. We're going to have a few extra bells and whistles that will make it easier to provide that loop back into your own database. Check out that, but I think it should work out of the box anyway. Like I said, it with the OpenID Connect integration.
This would be, I think, for pass. The question was about pass, not about auth.
Sorry, you're right. Yeah, I apologize. I misread that.
So auth will work.
Auth will work. Civic Pass, we don't currently have any Civic Pass WordPress integrations, but it's definitely something that we would be interested in. So I think I'd probably need to know a little bit more about the use case. The integration with Civic Pass requires checking the blockchain. You need to have code that can do that. We can definitely help you with that. We have lots of libraries for that, but I'm not sure exactly how that integration would look.
Yeah, please send us a note via the website contact form and we can explore that further. I think it warrants a bit more investigation. Okay, another question. So for Civic Pass, whether the photo ID, name, date of birth, and nationality information, are they going to be stored on the Civic server encrypted? And whether can they be retrieved by a third-party authority? So right now, the way Civic Pass works for reusability purpose, we enable the user to store their data in an end-to-end encrypted way, and they would have to be online to decrypt that. For clients, so businesses, so apps that want to store their data with us on their behalf, we can offer a similar functionality where the app builder would have the private key material to be able to decrypt that information, but not the third-party authority. So you would still, as an app builder, you would still have to retrieve the data yourself and then provide it to the authority on your own. The authority would not be able to access that data because that would mean exposing the keys to them as well and then creating another responsible party for that data. So the bottom line, it can be, but you would be still responsible for decrypting and then sharing that data with the authority as needed. So I hope that kind of answers that question. Any other questions? I know we're a little over time at this point. It's planning for 45 minutes. We went a bit over, but appreciate you guys staying on. If there are no more questions, then I'm going to wrap up and say, hey, if you want to try Civic Auth, go to auth.civic.com, get an account, get your client ID, and then follow those steps in the docs. And then you'll have a live integration on localhost as Dan demonstrated in less than 5 minutes. And then you can start adding 3 wallets if you want and create the context, access context, and so on. Okay, one more question before we wrap. Oh, 2 more questions. All right. Okay, first one. So can Civic Auth be personalized using AI for non-technical people? I think Dan, you did a demo recording last night, didn't you?
I did. So I was also interested in that question, and I asked Claude if it could hook up Civic Auth, and it did it roughly in about the same time as I did, which is pretty good considering it doesn't know anything per se about Civic Auth. So it needs to have access to the docs, but if you give it the docs, then it can be, you can basically just point it at the docs and it will add it itself. So best of luck with that. Have fun, and yeah, definitely reach out if you have any issues with it. We'll probably do it. Let's do a seminar. Let's do a webinar and vibe code integration of Civic Auth soon, Titus.
Yeah, we should definitely do it. We'll schedule the next one with vibe coding included. And then the last question, legal documents that define the agreement between the dApp hoster, the users, and Civic. That's all covered in like our privacy policy and in terms and conditions. They're not fun to read, but they cover everything. And happy to go through more details offline, Paul. So thanks for that question. All right. I think that's a wrap. Thank you, Daniel, for the coding piece and for the overview of how to integrate auth. Thanks everyone for participating. And if you think this is something you want to move forward with, auth is fully self-serve right now. Don't need to talk to us. Just go get an app ID and start coding. For pass, if you want ID verification, you have to talk to me. That's how it works. But if you want uniqueness, liveness, or CAPTCHA, you can go get a key yourself from the docs as well and then start coding there. And as Dan said, don't be afraid of asking your favorite AI agent something about Civic. We've been around for over 10 years. We've been ingested by these models, and it's likely that they will know either with a little help with like copy pasting the docs in, or even off the bat if they scrape the docs already, like with Pass. So thanks again for participating, and then we hope to see you at the next webinar. We're going to do vibe coding.
Nice.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.